G'day everyone, and welcome to another episode of Baggers Chat. Ethan here to review our unfortunate loss to the Adelaide Crows on Thursday night. The Crows defeated us 18-10, 118 to Carlton 9-8, 62. I was going to do it straight away the other night. I was going to do the review straight after the game, but I thought maybe take a couple of days to reflect on that and look at. There's no positives out of that game, but maybe just look at it at a few different ways. At the time, obviously, most of us were extremely annoyed and pissed off at the performance, and as we all should be. It was, in my opinion, it was definitely the worst loss in the Voss era. So over the last 2 years, I don't think we had a loss that bad last year. And it really stemmed off that first quarter. I think that was one of the worst quarters of football I've seen. Credit to Adelaide, they were on, from the first bounce, but we were completely off and they were completely on. And I think the first quarter was, I believe, 8 goals, 3, the 2 goals, 1, which is just not good enough and almost put them in control from the start of the game. And, that really hurt us and we had to kind of claw our way back, and which we didn't. We still didn't do that. And it kind of remained at that kind of 6 goal, 7 goal cushion for the Crows for most of the game. But it's just extremely frustrating. That first quarter, you just can't be starting out like that, especially away from home. And the home crowd gets around them, and it was really, really frustrating. And I think mainly it was just because, our midfield were absolutely killed. I think I've watched a few different reviews and people talking about it. I think Adelaide were the worst centre clearance side in the competition. And they smashed us in that, which I'll touch on later, but they smashed us in that. And it was the Dawson and Laird show. People are saying Dawson, the invisible man. We couldn't pick him up, and I think we put a tag on Laird after quarter time, which I think he had 16 at quarter time or something like that. And Dawson was just doing Dawson things, and he's a superb player. It's hard to stop, but there was just a lack of urgency or lack of pressure on those guys, and it really cost us. Giving guys like Dawson time to kick inside 50, he's going to be lacing out guys most of the time. So honestly, mid's too slow. I think the midfield mix we had, obviously you got, Hewitt, Curnow, Croup sometimes in there. We just lacked a bit of pace for mine. Obviously it was good to see Walshy back, which is probably the one positive of the game. It was good to see him back, but I think our mids were too slow and we're going to have to change something up come next week against the Saints, but I'll touch on that further in the preview of that game. Defensively, we were pretty horrible. Obviously, it was tough in that first quarter. It just kept coming in, but we couldn't stop them. We just could not. We couldn't get control down back. I thought both Weeders and Youngie were terrible. I thought they were really off, really off physically. I thought the matchups weren't right. Youngie on Tex Walker for a bit there, and then they obviously Fogarty I thought killed Weeders. It was just really bad to watch. And then their smalls didn't really get off the leash, which was, well, I guess you could say it was a positive, but also a negative that they didn't have an impact, and we still end up losing by 56 points. I think Rankin kicked 1 or 2. Rochelle kicked 1 or 2, so they still played all right, but they didn't have the impact on the scoreboard, which is really frustrating. That we still lost by 60. Selection was an issue this week, in my opinion. Obviously, with Doc coming out probably on the Wednesday, I think, especially in my preview, I thought a Chincotta debut was on the cards, and I think it was perfect. He was knocking down the door. He was definitely knocking down the door of selection, and I think he's a straight swap for Doc. And then we didn't really do that. Then we kind of opted to play Chera and Kennedy down half back, which I'm not sure what the reasoning is there. That really worried me a bit. It just didn't make sense. And then obviously Gov was a late out, and then you don't have Kemp as an emergency, so you put Plowman in, who People are bagging him, but seriously, if we have these guys, these passengers in our team for any longer, we're not going to get any far. We're not going to get very far. And that was extremely frustrating, especially for guys like Brody Kemp, who's been really good, and Chicotta, who's been fantastic in the twos. But I think there'll be a few changes come against St Kilda, and I think they'll get their chance after performing extremely well in the VFL. Not just well, but extremely well. And even a name like Paddy Dow, I know people will get a bit scared, but I think he could be in the side come next week. But we'll have to wait and see for that. Still, obviously, a week until that game, which is probably a good break for our side. We definitely need that to fix a lot of things because we haven't played our best footy at all this year, and luckily our record's okay, but our percentage is pretty woeful. But I'll just get into the key stats of the game. Just some that really caught my eye in particular. So Adelaide had 51 inside 50s, and they had 33 shots from that. So 33 shots from 51 inside 50s to our 21 shots from 53 inside 50s. So that's an issue. I think that's been an issue for most of obviously this year. Going forward, hitting our targets, getting shots on goal, 21 shots. We had more inside 50s and we lost by 56 points. That's just not good enough. So it just shows that we're getting enough of it. It's just, we're just really struggling to, get it going up forward and ahead of the ball, which is going to be an issue because that was our strength last year. And it really should be our strength considering the star power that we do have up forward. So that's another bad stat. Centre clearances, like I touched on before, I think Adelaide coming into that game were probably the worst side, centre clearance wise, numbers wise. Not saying their mids were bad, but just numbers wise, they were probably one of the worst teams centre clearance wise. We lost 18-12, not good enough. And a lot of our centre clearances were scrappy. They weren't going really deep inside, and a lot of their clearances were easy. Like I think there was one instance, I'm not sure if you guys can remember, but Dawson got the ball and slipped over and got back up and still ends up kicking the ball in or giving it to his teammates. That's just not good enough. That can't be happening in the AFL. You can't be having that much time, and that's just why we get ending up losing the centre clearances. And I could touch on all stats, but we almost lost every stat. You go on efficiency going forward, defensively. Obviously, we had more tackles because we were probably chasing us for most of the game, which we were. It was just really, really disappointing. Like I said before, it was a shining light. Good to have Sammy Walsh back in the side. He had 25 touches, 7 tackles and a goal. It was just good to have him back. Obviously, frustrating result, but he's going to be very important for us. And that midfield mix that I touched on before in games to come, especially against the Saints, who have a bit of pace, and obviously having Steele coming back next week. Move on to the injuries. Obviously, that's another negative. Obviously, with McGovern coming out late with a calf and Plowman replacing him, I'm not sure how long Gov will be out for. I imagine lucky it's a 10-day break. Hopefully, he can get up for the Saints game. But knowing Gov's history with soft tissues, I think he might miss 1 or 2 games. But hopefully, fingers crossed, he's fine. During the game, Pitto had a head clash, which obviously led to him having a massive cut on his head and getting subbed out. That could be concussion. Hopefully not. I think it was from Thursday as almost a 10-day break. So hopefully he gets up for the St Kilda game. Not entirely sure how that'll go, but I'll wait for the interesting injury reports from the Carlton Football Club because I thought Matty Owens was only out for 1 to 2 weeks, and it's ended up being until round 8. So you can't really trust sometimes what they say. But Adam Sard had a hamstring complaint, which was kind of said after the game, that is interesting. Hopefully the break allows him to recover from that and get going for the Saints, because I thought he was one of our better players on Thursday night, Sardi, and he's been fantastic this year. So I think we really can't afford to lose him as well, with Doc out especially. So we'll move on to the best player. I'm not going to do any best players this week. I don't think they deserve it. Obviously, we had a few good players. I thought Sardi and Walshy were good, but realistically, they weren't good enough, and there was no individual players playing well enough. And as a team, we were terrible. So that's going to be the end of the review. Obviously, disappointing to lose that game. Not many shining lights. I can't really talk about many great individual performances because it just was a bit of a bit of a car crash that game. And geez, it was coming. It was coming. I thought, our performances heading into this game weren't particularly fantastic, but yeah, we're back next week for the St Kilda preview. Pato's almost back. I think he's missing one more game, and then he'll be back. You'll be seeing myself and him back on previews and reviews. If you like the video, smash the like button. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Follow our social medias. We're on all different platforms. We're on, also our podcast you can also listen to on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So make sure you do that too. But always, boys, up the baggers.